Today's episode is brought to you by the DAX Copilot from Microsoft. DAX Copilot is your AI assistant for automating clinical documentation and workflows, helping you be more efficient and reduce the administrative burden that causes us all to feel overwhelmed. To learn more about how DAX Copilot can help you reduce burnout and restore the joy of practicing medicine, stick around after the episode or visit aka.ms/knock-knock-high. That's aka.ms/knock-knock-high. Knock, knock, hi. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Knock Knock I with me, your host, Dr. Glaucomflecken. Thanks for joining me today. If I sound like I have a little bit more pep in my step, that I'm a little bit more excited and just energetic, it's because, well, a couple things. Number one, I did just get my testosterone. It's a great week, the week that I get my Testapel, my little pellets. In case you're just joining me and you're wondering why on earth you're talking about that. Well, I've talked about this before. I've had bilateral orchiectomies. I don't have any of my own testicles. I don't plan on getting anybody else's testicles, so I need to replace my testosterone production. I do that with going to the urologist, and they give me these little pellets. They shoot it into my ass cheek, and it keeps me going for like 3 months. It's fantastic stuff. And so I already feel better. But also, I'm recording this on my lunch break. And usually I record these Knock Knock I episodes late at night, after the kids are in bed, after I've had a long day of work. I'm a little tired. But now I got some energy. I'm still going. I got afternoon clinic, but we're going to squeeze this episode in. I finished my my surgery day a little bit early, so I was like, let's teach the people about eyeball stuff. So how about it? Let's do it. Good day in surgery. It was great. Had a lighter day. I had a cancellation, so I did 10 surgeries. Sounds like a lot, but that's actually a fairly light morning. And everything went great. I did have a patient that had a very long eye, about 31 millimeters. And their vision before the surgery is about -20. That's a lot. And this person, they're going to have, it's going to be life-changing. These are the types of surgeries I love to do with cataract surgery, because to go from just not seeing anything, essentially, when you're not wearing any contacts or glasses, all of a sudden, bam, you can see your alarm clock. You can watch your TV across the room. You can read a book. It's just, I love it. I love it so much. I'm never going to stop doing cataract surgery as long as I can physically do it. It's the best thing in the world. Next to recording podcast episodes for all of you. All right. So I've got a few things that we could talk about today. I thought I'd start with some YouTube comments. So you guys went to the YouTube channel on the last episode and you went and commented. You left some comments. I love it. I love seeing those. By the way, it's a pretty new YouTube channel. Eventually I'm going to have to stop saying that, but it still is fairly new within the last couple months. At Glaucomfleckens on YouTube, you can see the video episodes of all these podcast episodes we do, both Knock Knock I and Knock Knock High, and I look at all those comments to get ideas for what I want to talk about on these episodes, these eyeball episodes. So great job, you guys. I'm looking at the comments on the last episode that was posted. Northern Lights. Why the camera sees them better than you do. So I talked about the Northern Lights, talked about a bunch of stuff, but why you can with your naked eye, it can be a bit underwhelming to look at the Northern Lights, but when you put your phone in front of it, you can all of a sudden see it better. It's just because the camera is able to absorb that light better. So we talked about that. You can go and check that video out. But I love some of these comments. So at Sockamus Prime. Said, and I think I mentioned this comment in the Knock Knock High episode. Let the record show it only took 47 episodes to get a model eyeball on the show. So I figured I'd show it to you now. Here it is. Here's my model eyeball. I love it. It's great. It opens up just like we would do during a normal eye surgery. We just crack the eye open in half. Eventually, I'm going to be able to do it here. There we go. we crack the eye open, and I'm just kidding. We don't ever crack. Nothing gets cracked in ophthalmology. We don't. Actually, that's not true. You can do an orbital decompression surgery for severe thyroid eye disease where the muscles are so enlarged that it's starting to push the eye forward in the orbit, and you have to actually break through the orbital walls to allow that tissue to relax into that space to let the eye come back inside the orbit to help with dry eye and optic nerve compromise. So technically we do crack things in ophthalmology, but the eyeball, no, the eyeball does not get cracked. It gets incised. We make incisions on the eyeball, but we don't crack it. Anyway, this is my eyeball model here. I love it so much. It's great. And today I'll be talking about, I'm going to give you my top 5 coolest surgeries in ophthalmology. That's what I'm going to do today. So I'll be using a little bit of this eyeball. I'll be talking about different parts of it. Again, sorry for the people that are listening. You're just going to have to imagine I'm holding up an eyeball model. And so I'm excited to use that a little bit, the best I can in this format. And I do feel bad because another commenter said, at Tank Guy 3 said, damn, I got an eyeball model ordered. I planned on sending you. Hey, I'm an ophthalmologist. Like you can't send me enough eyeball models, you guys. Like please do email us and we'll get you the address. Okay. knocknockhi@human-content.com. I will absolutely show any eyeball model, any prop, anything you want to send me. I don't want to get sent like a ton of stuff. So emails first and I'll tell you like, yeah, go send it. That sounds great. But I will show it on this and I will shout you out because I love it. It's so thoughtful of you guys to think about sending me eyeballs. Any kind of eyeballs. It doesn't have to be an eyeball model. Please, hopefully it's not like a real eyeball, like cow eyes. Don't like no organic matter, please. But I'm always happy to get eyeball stuff. You got a poster of eyeballs? You noticed I don't have in the background here. I've got a skeleton, but no eyeball posters. That needs to be rectified. So anyway, So Tank Guy 3, if you really did get an eyeball model for me, email me. All right. I want to hear from you, and we'll get that sent over to me ASAP. So I'm sure my wife would love more eyeball stuff around the house. Okay. At Jim Belter 2, he said, let's talk about drunken eyes. That would be very interesting. I totally agree. So let's talk about it. What does it mean? Like when you look at someone, you just kind of like, oh, that person looks drunk. I mean, obviously they could be like stumbling around, right? Your equilibrium is off. The room is spinning because your vestibular system is activated and it's all messed up. That's not, I think, what we're talking about. Drunken eyes is like this very specific look to somebody. Like you look at someone sober and then you look at them after they've had like 8 drinks and they just like their eye, you can see it. Their eyes, let me explain kind of what is happening and why your eyes look that way, why you look drunk with respect to your eyes. So first of all, alcohol causes blood vessels to dilate. It causes blood vessels in the eyes to dilate. So your eyes are going to get bloodshot. They're going to get red. That's why a lot of people really don't like having red eyes. Some people have naturally a little bit more vasculature to the white parts of their eyes. That's why people start using Visine and things that I'm telling you not to do. Because people don't like having that red look. Because people are like, oh, did you take something? Are you drunk? Did you get any sleep last night? Asking all these invasive questions. But really, the person just has like normal vasculature to the eyes. By the way, please, no Visine, no Clear Eyes. If you really are desperate to get your red eyes under control, first, like make sure that's not a reason. If your eyes otherwise feel totally fine, not having any vision problems, then you might just have red eyes. We don't get concerned about that as in ophthalmology, but I get it. No one wants to have people notice their red eyes. Lumify. I don't have any financial interest in Lumify, but it is the safest option because it is low-dose brimonidine, which is a medication that we do use in glaucoma. So it's safe. You don't want to use it too much. I wouldn't use it every day, because if you develop an allergy to it, and brimonidine is known for developing allergy. For you get an allergy to brimonidine, it's really uncomfortable, and you have to stop using it like forever. So if you like your Lumify, go easy on it. That's my point. All right, so bloodshot eyes, that's drunken eyes, bloodshot, dehydration. So alcohol causes you to be dehydrated. Let me see if I can remember my neprophysiology. It blocks alcohol dehydrogenase. I think that's the enzyme. Basically, it prevents you from being able to concentrate your urine. That's what it is. I'm not going to embarrass. I've already embarrassed myself. Whatever. It prevents you from concentrating your urine. That's why you pee so much. So anyway, you get dehydrated, and then what happens is it dehydrates your entire body. Your eyes can kind of appear more sunken. You can see a little bit more of the skin around your eyes. That sunken feeling, it makes you look a little bit older. And so that's another thing that goes into this. Also, relaxing your muscles. Alcohol is a muscle relaxer. You just get kind of like loosey-goosey, right? And it can also affect your eyelids. So your eyelids get a little bit droopy. All right. Sometimes maybe your eyes will you get a little bit of temporary strabismus. Your eyes don't seem to be working well together. I've seen that happen as well. But really, it's like the droopy eyelids that people notice. I think those are the biggest ones, right? Redness, dehydration, you get a dehydrated face, and your eyes just get a little relaxed and droopy. It gives you that drunken eye look. That's a great question. Thank you for that, Jim Belcher, too. I got a lot of other questions, some really good ones. At Sandra Odell 610 said, I would love to know more about folklore eye cures or old wives' tales for eye cures. I love that idea. I am going to look into that. I'm going to do some research and get back to you on that one, because I know there's a bunch. I just am not familiar with all of them. So I'll do some researching, and we'll have an episode where I feature that as well. A lot of people wanted that comparative anatomy stuff. So with eyeballs with different animals versus humans, and the different things, and dogs and whatever. So I'm going to work on that as well. So thank you. Keep those suggestions coming. I love those. There's a few others that I'm going to get to. I'm going to record another episode this week, so I'll talk about some more comments for next episode as well. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about some things. All right, what I thought we'd do today, I want to talk about my top 5 favorite, not so much favorite, but I'd say most incredible, amazing, interesting eye surgeries that are done. And these are, I chose pretty common ones that a lot of people have had, but that when you really sit back and think about it, even as an ophthalmologist, I'm like, man, that's just like really cool that we do that. And eyeball surgery, and whenever I tell someone that I don't know like what I do for a living, it's always the automatic thing that people think I do is optometry. When I say like, oh, I'm an ophthalmologist, they think that's the glasses doctor. So they think, even though I tell them I'm an ophthalmologist, in their mind, people think, oh, optometry. I went to an optometrist once. I get that sometimes. Yeah, let me tell you about the time I went to an optometrist. Optometrists are great. They do great work. We work with optometrists. But they have a completely different job, different training, different everything. So, and so what I will often follow that up with is, I'm an ophthalmologist. I do eye surgery. Because that's a big part of my job. And then people are surprised, like, surgery on your eyes? Almost like you can't even fathom that that's done. And then people assume I do LASIK, which I have done. I don't do LASIK. We have some of my partners do LASIK. I do not currently do. I've done LASIK in the past, but I at this point do not do LASIK anymore. And so I figured, man, I bet there's a lot of people that just have no idea like the scope of things, of surgeries that we can do for the eye. So I thought, let's talk about it. I wrote down my top 5, interesting eye surgeries that I think will fascinate and delight the audience here. All right, here we go. The top one, the first one, and these are in no particular order, except for the first one, which is my favorite, cataract surgery. We've talked about cataract surgery before, so I'm not going to go into like the details too much, although I will take out my trusty eyeball model here. That's right. Here it is. So, only took 47 episodes to get a model eyeball on the show. Remember. All right. So I cracked open the eye, and inside, obviously you have the front of the eye. Again, you might have to, you want to pull up YouTube for this. You have the cornea, that's right in the front. I'll try to make this accessible to everybody, no matter how you're listening. And then behind the cornea is the iris. That's the colored part of your eye. And then behind that is the lens. The lens sits toward the front of the eye. All right. So you have all this space in the back of the eye. That's where the vitreous is. That's that just face. It's filled with vitreous humor. And then in front of that sits the lens right behind the colored part of your eye, the iris. So with cataract surgery, we are going into the eye, removing that lens and replacing it with a plastic artificial lens. And that's really what I think is the most fascinating part about this. I've talked to you guys about, how the human lens, it's like a peanut M&M, and basically with surgery, I'm removing the peanut and the chocolate and I'm replacing it with a new lens that's much less delicious. But I think the types of lenses, that's where the field is really getting very fascinating. Because back in the day, I say back in the day, like when we first started putting artificial lenses in people's eyes, I don't know probably 30 years ago now, maybe 40 years ago, it was like one power. Like no matter what your eye was, you got there was one lens and it went in your eye, and then you just had to make up the rest with glasses. And so, that the lens might not have been perfect for your eye. Someone with a 30 millimeter eye gets a different lens power than someone with a 20 millimeter eye, because they need a different power lens because their eyes a different size. Well, it used to not be that way. You used to just have like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different powers that we had to just put in your eye, and then whatever your refractive error you were left with, we just fixed it with glasses. So that's how it worked when we first started using these artificial lenses back in like the 70s and 80s. But now we have a different, no matter what size eye you are, or how steep your curvature of your cornea, or how long your eye is. I just did a surgery on someone with a 30 millimeter eye. They're minus 20. I can find a lens that is specific for that eye. And that's pretty impressive. All right, they're manufactured. There are different companies that make them, but I can find a lens that can theoretically get you seeing perfect again, 20/20. Someone who is minus 20, minus 18, who's never seen 20/20 in their life, all of a sudden they can see 20/20 again after cataract surgery. That's super cool. That's really, really awesome. Not only that, though, we have lenses that can correct your astigmatism as well. We have what are called multifocal lenses. It's like taking a trifocal or something, or a progressive lens in your glasses. Instead, we're putting it inside your eye so that you can just go from looking at the TV across the room to looking at your computer screen to looking at your phone. By the way, man, that's a lot of screens. Surefire way to get dry eye, but anyway, it can be done. It can be done with these artificial lenses. And even better, now we have this light adjustable lens. I think I've talked about this before as well. We can put it in your eye and then use a special wavelength of ultraviolet light to, after the surgery, dial in the lens. Because sometimes we try to choose the perfect lens for a person, but the refraction, the end result is a little off. Maybe you see 20/30 instead of 20/20, and you're like a -1. You're a little bit myopic, or you're a little bit hyperopic. Well, we can use these special lenses that we can adjust, and we can take out that margin for error and get you seeing perfectly after the surgery's done. Never been able to do that. Well, now we have this light adjustable lens. And so the technology just keeps coming and keeps coming. And I don't know what the next stage is. I feel like every year we hear about some like potential technology where you get an eye drop, it dissolves your cataracts. I mean, I swear, literally like once every other year, that's like makes the rounds on all the popular news sites and stuff. But that's like science fiction stuff. And not saying that can't happen someday, but we are way far away from that happening. So cataract surgery, I think, is super cool. And by the way, we are starting to see that boomer wave hit. Like my wait list and all of my partners, like our wait time for getting people in for cataract surgery is just growing by the day. We need more people. Med students, go into ophthalmology. All right, you'll love it. It's great. It's no weekends, at least very few weekends, and you don't have to work at nighttime. It's fantastic. Come on, come join us. There's a lot of people getting older and developing cataracts. Everybody over 60 gets cataracts. So as the population gets older, we're in a heap of trouble. All right, we need more people able to do cataract surgery. So anyway, cataract surgery is the first one. The next surgery is strabismus surgery. I think strabismus surgery, although I didn't like doing it, it's technically, I think, kind of a little bit challenging. It's a really cool surgery because, I mean, you're physically, think about it, your eye, in order to move all these different directions, there are 6 muscles that allow you to do that. 6 muscles around your eye that allow you, no matter where you want to look, you can look all the way to the left, all the way to the right, up, down, diagonal, whatever. Torsional, you can torse your eye. It's so cool. Well, we can take those, we can remove the muscle from the eye and put it on a different part of the eye. We can move it up in front. We can move it behind the original insertion. We can move it up above the original insertion or down below. We can move it anywhere we want, and that will change the mechanics of the eye. And so for people with strabismus who their eyes are not aligned properly, I think it's super fascinating, really cool that we can just rearrange the muscles. And there's algorithms, there's calculations you can use using physics and angles and to figure out exactly where to move that muscle and how far away to move it, to all of a sudden get someone to not see double vision anymore and see perfectly straight ahead. I think that's fascinating. That's so cool that we've figured that out. Strabismus surgery. The pediatric ophthalmologists, they do not get their due for the work they do, and it's hard surgery too because it's very delicate. These muscle, I mean, oftentimes they're operating on children. I mean, adults can have strabismus surgery too, but lots of kids, and so you're making like partial thickness needle passes on the white part of the eye. To reattach, like reattaching the muscle is a harrowing experience whenever you're just learning or just or watching strabismus. Or these strabismus surgeons, and I work with one. It's no big deal to them, right? They've done so many of these. It's just it's really, really cool what they do. So we need more pediatric ophthalmologists as well. Very important. All right, the next one, number 3, is retinal detachment repair. Now, I always make fun of retina surgeons because they are like the general surgeons of ophthalmology. I think it's funny that you take a field like ophthalmology that's known for having good work-life balance, and then some people who go into ophthalmology are like, you know what, actually, I'm not a big fan of that work-life balance. Let me try to revert back to whatever else is going on in the world of medicine. And they become retina specialists, and they have to take call, and they have a bunch of emergencies, and they got to do surgeries at night and on the weekends and holidays and whenever retinas detach. So I'm always making fun of them for it. But I will say, I've never done it. I mean, I have. I've participated in retina surgery and retinal detachment repair. I really think there's few things that are cooler than reattaching someone's retina. Because this person, if you don't do something, they are blind. When your retina detaches, by the way, here's my model. Let's get my model back out here. The retina, it's all this in the back of the eye. It's like it's the wallpaper that lines the back of your eye. If that becomes detached because you have a torn retina, we've talked about retinal detachment and why people can get a torn retina or retinal detachment. But if your retina, you get a tear in your retina, the retina detaches, you can't see anything. That's it. That's it. You are blind. You will be blind unless you have surgery to fix it. So the stakes are incredibly high, and you are every single patient you do that surgery to, like you're giving them the best chance they have at sight. And so I'm fascinated by that surgery and what they can do. It's also technically very difficult surgery because you're using these long like trocar things, and you're doing laser, and you're exchanging oil with gas, and I don't know how they do it. And they're doing this thing called a retinectomy, which I still am not quite sure what that is. And so it's really it's about as like subspecialist, fancy surgery as you get. They have microscopes and they have all these gadgets and things. They have to have special equipment that usually only can do in the hospital. Patients often have to be put under general anesthesia, but sometimes you can just give a block and to do the surgery. It can take about 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes longer, 2 hours. I don't know, but it's just hard surgery. And I swear, I feel like there's like a little zipper sound whenever you reattach, like zip, there it goes. I don't know. If not, like I think there should be. I guess what I'm saying is if I was a retina surgeon doing retinal reattachment surgery, I would make that sound whenever I reattach the retina. I don't know. I just think there's room for comedy everywhere, All right. So that's retinal. It's super cool. And people always freak out when they get a retinal detachment, and it's a big deal, but man, they're so good at doing that surgery and reattaching that retina and getting you seeing again. And I've seen people go from complete blindness to 20/20 again because they get that detachment fixed. Not all detachments can be fixed. It's harder to fix some than others. Sometimes you can just put a bubble in the eye and it fixes the detachment. Crazy stuff. So shout out my retina colleagues. Thank you for working at night so the rest of us don't have to. All right, let's take a break and we'll do my last two surgeries. Okay, here is my next one that I am always impressed by, and that's corneal transplant surgery. So when you're an organ donor, that includes your corneas. Did you know that? It's a wonderful gift. It really is. We have eye banks all over the country that will supply corneal tissue, and there's lots of different diseases that necessitate a corneal transplant. Probably the classic one that's performed most frequently, certainly like top 2 or 3, would be a keratoconus. And this is the most common reason to perform a full thickness corneal transplant. So here you go. Here's the cornea. All right, it's this little disc that sits right in the front of the eye. God, I'm getting a lot of use out of my eyeball model. So this little disc, and a full thickness corneal transplant is you're literally taking a trephine, I think that's how you say it, trephine, and you're trephining a hole in the center of the cornea. Usually it's like 5 millimeters, 5.5 millimeters, something like that, 6, maybe even bigger. It depends on the patient and the whatever. But you're doing this, you're taking out this full thickness, taking out the cornea, and you take a graft, a donor, someone who died and donated their corneas, and you are suturing this new cornea to the patient. It's super cool, and the recovery's long. Vision is pretty poor for a while, but then it can gradually improve, and you can do things like special contact lenses that can help correct any kind of irregular astigmatism, and patients do really well. And these full thickness corneal transplants for keratoconus can last decades. I've seen patients with the same transplant that they've been using that's been there for 30 plus years. And so talk about like a gift to give to someone that provides them sight for decades. Like, isn't that cool? I think that's amazing. And it's not just the full thickness cornea. So one thing we're good at in ophthalmology is making things smaller and smaller. And that applies to corneal transplants. So before, all we had were the full thickness. All you could do is transplant the entire thickness of a cornea from someone who died to your patient. Well, over the years, we've slowly narrowed that down to doing certain layers of the cornea. So the layers of the cornea, on the inside layer of the cornea, you have your endothelium. Those are the cells that pump fluid out of the eye and make the cornea stay nice and clear. Then you have this little thing called the Descemet's membrane. Then you have the bulk of the thickness of the cornea, the stroma, and then you have the epithelium on top, Bowman's layer epithelium. And so we figured out how to just do a partial thickness corneal transplant. And there's a particular disease called Fuchs dystrophy. So Fuchs dystrophy is where the endothelial cell layer, that inside cell layer of the cornea that you have to have functioning really well in order to keep the cornea dehydrated, to keep it clear. Once fluid gets in the cornea, it gets cloudy and you can't see anything. So the endothelium, it pumps fluid out of the cornea. Well, there are certain diseases where that endothelial cell layer starts to fail. Fuchs dystrophy is by far the most common. If you have a lot of eye surgery, then that can cause those endothelial cells to die. And sometimes you can get a cloudy cornea from that, from loss of those cells. Anything that would cause loss or dysfunction of those endothelial cells will cause you to have a cloudy cornea. And so they discovered a way to just transplant that cell layer. Well, not really just the endothelial cells, but also what we call the Descemet's membrane, which is right next. It's what the endothelial cells sit on. So now we have what's called a Descemet's membrane endothelial keratoplasty. So basically, we're only replacing the one thing that's dysfunctional in the cornea. And that also, it comes from a donor. It's this extremely thin piece of tissue. You can imagine, we're talking microns thick. And we go into our patient in surgery, we kind of scrape off that layer on the inside of the cornea. All right, here's your cornea. Imagine the person is like looking up at the sky. We're going inside and scraping the inside of this cornea, peeling off that layer, the Descemet's membrane, and then we take the donor tissue, put it in there, and it unfolds, and then we use an air bubble to push it against the cornea, and then we leave the air bubble in there for a few days. That's amazing. That's incredible. We've been doing this for, 15 years now. But it totally revolutionized the corneal transplant game, because before the only thing we could do was a full thickness transplant, and that is a long recovery. Vision sometimes doesn't get a whole lot better. But with these types of transplants, just transplanting a partial thickness, one cell layer, basically, patients can see 20/20. Perfect. So it's incredible. I'm in awe of my colleagues in medicine over the years who have developed ways to do these things, and never ceases to amaze me. And the last one, I can't leave out my oculoplastics colleagues, all right, because they're the ones that will claim that they're the surgeons of ophthalmology. Everybody else dabbles in surgery. They are true surgeons. They do plastic surgery, not just plastic surgery, oculoplastic surgery. Anyway, I love my Plastics doctors, they do things that I would never want to do in my life, like a DCR, a dacrocystorhinostomy. This is a really cool surgery where if someone has a blocked tear drainage system. So I don't have an eyelid model to show you, but your tears that you make, they drain into your nose. Did you know that? That's why when you cry, your nose runs, because that's your tears. You're making a bunch of tears that are draining into the nose, and there's just too many. You can't absorb all of them into your body, so some of it just runs down your face through your nose. Those are your tears coming out of your nose. Yeah. Well, for a variety of different reasons, that tear drainage system that gets from on your eye into your nose can get blocked. There's different ways that can happen. It can be a congenital thing. You can get like an infection that causes it to be blocked. Sometimes your own anatomy causes it to be blocked over time. Strictures, if you have chemotherapy, you can have, there's lots, it's a laundry list of reasons. But the surgery to fix that is equal parts fascinating and barbaric. You're just like going from right on the inside of it. It's called a DCR, a dacrocystorhinostomy. So you're basically like taking a drill and you're just making a new hole in the nose and then connecting it with a tube. And so you create a new tube system that allows the tears to drain again. I'm being a bit facetious. Like it's more complicated than that. You're making an incision right next to the nose. You're going down to the bone. You're drilling. You are drilling an opening, or at least cutting an opening in the bone, in the nasal bone. Then you put a tube in there, you suture a tube in there, and then connect the tube through your punctum, which is your natural opening of where tears drain. And so you're bypassing the blockage, creating a new opening. That tube stays there for like 3 months, 6 months, something like that. I think it's more like 3 months. And eventually it scars into place this new tube system, and you can remove the artificial tube and you're left with your own natural tube. And all of a sudden, bam, patient's not tearing anymore. And that's really frustrating for patients who have a blockage there, because even when they're not crying, their just natural tears aren't draining. And so can you imagine just like you're sitting there, you're in class or at work, and just like you just constantly have tears running down your face? It's not an emotional thing. It's just your tears have nowhere to go. So of course they're eventually going to spill over your eyelid down your face. Really annoying to have that going on. And so a DCR is a fairly invasive surgery of creating a new system to bypass the blocked drainage system. There you have it, everyone. 5 surgeries. Now, there are so many more surgeries that I could talk about, and maybe I will. If you've had eye surgery that I didn't include on this, like, tell me about it. I'd love to talk about the type of surgery that you had. I think it's fascinating. I didn't do any glaucoma surgeries, so that's another thing we could talk about. But with how small the eye is, we can do a remarkable number of things to it to fix problems for people, to get people seeing better, feeling better, be less teary. So anyway, and out of all those, I used to do corneal transplants. I did a few of those, some of them in probably like 20 or so in residency. I gave that up whenever I got my job, gladly, because they're just very difficult. Obviously, I do a ton of cataract surgery. Never did a DCR. Never did like a complete retinal detachment repair on my own. I did a little bit of strabismus surgery on my own. And the thing is, so I'm a comprehensive ophthalmologist, and just like everything in medicine, it's becoming so subspecialized. But some of my mentors who went to residency like in the 80s or even early 90s, they did pretty much all of these types of surgeries. You just had to do it. There was no subspecialty thing where, okay, well, you can only do retinal detachment repair if you're a retina specialist, or you'd only do strabismus if you're a pediatric ophthalmologist. No, they were ophthalmology. You're just doing all of it. Now, you probably weren't doing it as well as the way we do it now, 30 years later, where you can do an entire subspecialist. You can do 1 to 2 year fellowship where you're just doing that type of surgery. So there's a reason why people like me are not doing all of these surgeries, because there are other people that are focused on that. And that's just the way medicine has gone. We are moving toward extreme subspecialization. You won't find a lot of jobs. You have to go way out into a very rural area to find the type of ophthalmologist who is willing to do all these different types of surgeries. And usually it's just because they have to. Like I can't even think of any off the top of my head. Everything's subspecialized. You got cataract surgeons, you got strabismus surgeons, you got plastic surgeons, cornea surgeons. We all have our little area, and it's silly to think about that because it's an eyeball. My God, it's only 22 millimeters long. But that's just the way medicine is. There you have it. Thank you all for listening. I'm your host, Will Flannery, also known as Dr. Glockenflecken. Thanks to my producers, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brick. Editor and engineers, Jason Perdiz. Our music is by Omer Benzvi. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Give me your suggestions for topics. Let me know what kind of eye surgery you had. And if you have any pressing thoughts or anything you want to share with me, any stories about going to the eye doctor. It just has to be like loosely related to eyeballs. I'm happy to hear it. knockknockhi@human-content.com. Leave comments as well on our YouTube channel @Glockenfleckens. I'd love to hear from you. I look at all those all those comments, and we'll give you a shout out on the show. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Knock, knock, goodbye.
Thanks for watching the episode. You can find more on that playlist over there. If you prefer to listen, or you just had your eyes dilated, you can binge full episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Or join the party over on Patreon, where you get early access episodes, hang out with us, get lots of exclusive bonus content. Hope you subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.